Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Have you ever thought of starting an investment business with your spouse, partner, best friend, somebody in your life? We're about to give you a masterclass on probably relationships, but also on growing a business together, finding the right time for you both to jump in. And this is all about real estate investing and contracting together, watching them work as one big proof of concept. My guests are Tyler and Zosia Madden. Let's go. This is episode 144 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guests, Tyler and Zosia Madden. They are the CEO and COO of Laurelless. They are real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and they've been all over the flipping game since I found them on Instagram a long time ago. Guys, welcome to the show. I'm excited that I finally got you on.
Thank you for having us. I know it's been a long time coming and something we've been looking forward to, and I'm very excited to be able to do this with Zosia. I think what we do is possible only because we do it together. So I'm excited to share our story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm excited. And like I was telling you in the pre-call, I do really enjoy having couples on who work together because I think that's a barrier for a lot of people to entry. Why don't we start there and tell us, Tyler, I know I think we're ahead of the game because you're a GC. Yeah. How did you eventually get Zosia involved? And Zosia, were you ready to get involved?
Great question.
I think it's funny because it's the answer that people don't want to hear. It was a long process.
Yeah.
Literal years, maybe 6 years of me having the idea that, hey, real estate can change our life. Our trajectory is not exactly what we expect from our W-2s. And I really started investigating all of that and learning a lot more. And that was a solo effort for a long time because at that point, we were living in our very first home together, the first house Zosia had ever lived in her whole entire life. It was always apartment.
In big cities. Yeah.
So it was always apartments. So it seemed super foreign for her, but I was dedicated to learning what I could. So I started listening to Bigger Pockets. I started checking out the forums. And this was, 2014, 2015. So back a while. And then I became a contractor just for no other reason than I liked fixing up a house for us to live in, to call home. So over time, I got better and better. And that turned into something that turned into a career I never intended. I went to school for pre-med. I was supposed to go into medicine. So totally opposite direction of that. But I got really good at construction, which led me to fixing up our house, which led me to creating a ton of equity in our house. And then we got the wild hair of like, literally the paint was still wet on the final project of that. And we were like, you know what we should do?
Move.
But my selfish ass was like, how do we do that without getting rid of this house? And that's when we really understood the power of real estate, where we used a HELOC to get our second home, which is the one that we're in here. And we used part of that HELOC to remodel it, to do the same thing, force a boatload of equity, refinance, pay off the HELOC, and then we still had enough equity. So that, I think, was a huge turning point for me to prove firsthand to Zosia. And this was over from 2013 to 2018. I fixed up that house. Yeah. Live and flip for that period. She saw that. And then even moving into this house, I'll let you speak to that, but like seeing proof of concept where it's like, oh shit, like it's not just a playbook that no one ever executes on. We actually did it and lived it.
Yeah.
So you can speak to like the real estate investing aspect.
Yeah. What was the 5-year process like for you, Zosia? And then when did it click for you? Because it was probably a different time than for Tyler.
Totally. And I think that it was interesting because his first inclination to keep our first house as our first rental, and we had house hacked it. We had a couple of roommates
before we knew what it was.
Before we knew what that term was, to get sod, and I thought that was cool, right? We just made some money to pay off some things.
Yeah.
So
we kept getting projects done, and somehow it kept getting paid for,
and we weren't out of pocket for it, which was awesome. And then once we got this house, it was definitely that understanding of, okay, now we're landlords. This is interesting. Our first foray into real estate and being landlords, there was a fire. So there was all sorts of really exciting things, and I still
Fun
was
stuff.
into it. Yeah. And I think really the biggest next change is in 2020, when the world shut down, we started doing a little bit more research. Definitely him. I still had a W-2 job. And that's really what led us into saying, okay, we have now tons of equity in our second home. What do we do with it? And he did a great job completely diving in, spending a lot of time on learning and then getting me into learning also, but in small tidbits, which was super helpful. Like a quick screenshot of a podcast he was listening to, or
not the whole thing, just a little thing like,
Just the whole thing. Good luck. Tell me when you're ready. Like
Totally.
That doesn't work.
And I would say that for anybody who's just getting into it, it was very beneficial in our story for me to have my W-2 job as long as I did, because it allowed us to be very lendable. I had really high level jobs. It kept us stable while we were able to jump in, have an entrepreneur in the family. And so I would say that anybody that's saying, hey, they want to work with their spouse, be very clear about what your goals are and how you're going to get there versus being like, see ya, jobs, like we're both going to do this together.
Yeah, right. At the same time. I think that's really important though, because I think that's part of the partnership to know that, look, hey, somebody's got to stick with the W-2, like you said, so you're lendable and you have keeping the solid credit instead of both jumping ship at the whole time and putting all your eggs in one basket.
Well, and let's be honest, like the jump from a W-2 consistent, comfortable paycheck to being self-employed or an entrepreneur, like everyone thinks of it as this gold standard of achievement and I've made it and that's an amazing thing. And it is, but it's fucking terrifying. Can we cuss on your podcast?
Yeah.
It's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
When you're both in the position where you're fully dependent on your actions and your actions alone, no one comes to save you. I think that's a real thing. And it took even a couple of years longer for Zosia to join the business. So that was kind of the story of real estate investing and how we went from our first to our second. And then we bought, a whole grip of them while she was still employed. But again, we used her employment status and her high level income, all of that for our gain. And then what I was doing in the background that I never intended was building a business. I became a general contractor and I was self-employed, where that looks like shit on paper, until
it really does.
Like I needed a paper trail and tax records that indicate that we spent a very intentional few years making sure our paper trail was correct with me being self-employed, building the business to a certain point, and then I think it was a sequence of getting Zosia involved and interested in real estate investing that was really important. But then I had to do the same damn thing of getting her interested in joining the business. Yeah. The business is our construction business, which is not a real estate investing business. I work for clients. I do high-end luxury remodels for homeowner clients, and realizing the benefits that Zosia brought to the table, it took another series of years and months of me convincing her, hey, this is the best thing for us. And me at that point, I was several years into working for myself and depending on no one but me. So I had a comfort level with the discomfort. She still had this high paying job and she's like, what, you want me to quit this job and join the business? So I was like, yes, but the future, the goal, the vision. I'm a visionary. She's an integrator. That's just, and I acknowledge that. I was reading, the books, Rocket Fuel, and having the realization where I was like, oh shit, you need that dynamic. We have that dynamic. So it was another series of sharing tidbits from books and podcasts, but also networking and seeing other people that are living proof that you can work for yourself and do very, very well. And then ultimately she came on board with the business in a full-time capacity, which has been part of the coolest thing that's ever happened for both of us to be able to rely on our business and our vision and our dreams. And we're both contributing to the same dream in two very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think from the outside, I found it really enjoyable to watch because you could tell the trajectory was there. I remember a few years ago, it was smaller, and then all of a sudden you keep watching and then it's building and they're like, oh, look, you're doing it together. I think that gives a lot of people a lot of hope where, maybe one person's a little more interested in the beginning, but then you start to see like, wait, this can start off as residual income that's extra for us. But all of a sudden, like you said, you embarked on a career where you thought you're just going to do it for yourself. And now, wait, I'm pretty good at this. Yeah. These things look nice. And now other people want to hire me. Yes. Zosia, when did you really know, like, okay, I don't need the security of that because Tyler has this going? And you personally, like, when did you really start to love what was going to be the business for you guys together?
I love that question.
That's a great question. I think that So I always have believed in Tyler. We've known each other for 20 years. So we've known each other for a very long time. We've been through, awkward teenage stages to now being parents. But I've always known Tyler to be somebody who has grit and will go for and completely succeed at whatever he wants to do. However, it took us a little longer. We had a little stint, both of us, like bartending and having some fun. And I mean, everybody in their early 20s.
There was a long period of like no direction.
Right.
Let's not be, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Once the direction and like the ship was moving forward to the right, the next thing, like the course was set. And I especially think after having our kid, who's now 3, a little bit over 3, I realized that I didn't want to be beholden to other people's schedules as much. And I think that that was a huge light bulb for me. Mm-hmm. I still did it for a long time, for about a year and a half or so, which doesn't seem like that long, but for me, it felt like a long time.
It's
but luckily,
longer when you have a kid because it's like you just want to be home. What am I doing? Yeah. This isn't even fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think Tyler had luckily set up the framework and the foundation of a great business. And I had helped him hire a project manager. We had hired, and I had helped him kind of in the background a little bit.
You dabbled, never as an employee or a partner, but just like
very haphazardly. It was
that's a good intro to the parts that you eventually grew. And like you said, maybe you were trying to every day be like, hey, today is the day, but at least you were kind of getting your feet wet without having to go all the way in.
100%. And then I think, a few different pieces fell into place where it just was the right moment. And we realized that we were making enough income from the rental properties that we had set up.
I think it'd be valuable to talk about the 7 units that we purchased when you were 9 months pregnant. And that was really the tipping point for our real estate investing career. And then realizing that our real estate investing business and our construction business could cross-pollinate in a way that nobody else has those two skill sets in-house. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you want to talk about like, what did that do for your mindset?
Yeah. Well, it was crazy because it was 2021. So it was still masks. I was 9 months pregnant. We were walking these crazy properties that nobody should be walking in. But we decided to purchase all 7 of them at once, which is, super fun. I think we closed on one like a month before we had the kiddo, and then another one. But Tyler used his resources at the construction company and himself and sweat equity. We were able to completely burr those 2 small multifamily properties. Mm-hmm. And that was really beneficial. And then we had the plan of doing midterm rentals, which we kind of fell into, but it worked out. And so the income for all of those, and then we purchased another 4 unit.
Also realizing that was our first real estate investment outside of hey, we became accidental landlords where we moved into a new house and we kept the old one. Like that was our real estate investing acumen prior to that point. And then instead of just getting another single family home, we bought a 3 unit and a 4 unit, $1 million purchase price all at once when she's 9 months pregnant. So I think that again, demonstration, I think sometimes more than anything in our relationship, what we need is proof of concept. Mm-hmm. Instead of, hey, here's the theory, here's what the book says, here's what the podcast, here's what other people have done. Like, I think proof of concept is an extremely strong thing. And if I were to wait for Zosia to jump on board fully at that point, that wouldn't have happened. So I feel like at a certain point, I'm very happy to risk as long as it's calculated, measured risk. And I have a high degree of confidence that I'm going to succeed. And I'm very confident in my own abilities. So I think demonstrating that to you was also another line in the sand where it's like, oh shit, like there's really something here.
Yeah.
And then we were to buy another 4 unit and in short order and like a tremendous amount of debt, but good debt. Like we have a $4 million
leverage debt. Yeah, but I think it's important for people to know that you have the skill set to do value add. So you're ahead because you can save all the contractor costs, which is huge for people who are in the business. And that also maybe for you, Zosia, was like, okay, we are incurring this debt, but like we already did it on our primary home and we got all this equity. So why wouldn't we get it on a total of 7 units? Was that something that made it like a little bit easier, even though that's a weird time to be buying, but a good time to take action?
And I find that, as Tyler just said, calculated risk, we're also relatively spontaneous individuals where we are kind of bad at pre-planning a whole bunch. But if good opportunities come in front of us and we can make it work, we will act on it very fast. Yeah. And that's kind of how both he and I have been forever. So
our figure it out gene is strong.
Very strong. Yeah. And so we almost would rather be pushed against the wall 9 months pregnant, $1 million. We've never purchased this much. We have no idea what our exit strategy is going to be. Like we kind of do, but how are we going to make this work? How long is it going to take? Yeah. And then all of a sudden we're 6 months into the projects because we acquired a whole bunch of tenants, which is like a big story for time.
Fun.
Oh gosh.
We did it
eviction.
all.
We did the whole thing. So, but then all of a sudden Tyler goes, hey, we're running numbers again. We look at what our rental income is, and we made money on both of those deals. We did not leave any money.
Even with that,
pour out all our money. We made extra money and managed to cash flow all of them. Yeah. So it was like a great success on all of them.
And I still had a job. Yeah. We had a baby. Yeah. And so then it was like all compounding, right? And then I think once you keep on it's like compounding interest, right? Then all of a sudden you have the proof. And I think Brandon Turner said it, where it's not that much harder to buy 1 to 4. And then all of a sudden you buy 4 to 8. And we haven't done that much, but what we did instead was saying, okay, we'll buy a few more rentals and we'll keep on buying bigger. And then let's take that compounding and put it towards the business and say, okay, running real estate is a business. If you're doing it right, you have your bookkeeper, you have operations, you have your SOPs, you know exactly how you're going to organize everything. You know where your money is and who to schedule, where, how. And then the same thing is for a business. And so how do you think about that compounding with growing Laurelless? And while he was still continuing to build the business, it was only him and a project manager and some
I had
subs.
A job.
He had a job.
It was very much a job that I had a branded business, and I set the framework for the business to work, but it was still me swinging a hammer as a GC for a number of years. And that only changed when she came on.
So that's where you have to kind of think about it of saying, do we want to keep on building this real estate empire? Great for taxes. Awesome. I don't really want to be a landlord forever. However, building businesses,
I don't enjoy it.
I know. Sometimes, no, but I don't know anybody that does. And it is not passive. So if we're not going to be passive with the real estate business, why not let's not be passive for a little bit so we can be passive with our construction business and the different arms of that business as we can continue to grow it. And so that's where the realization of what could we bring and what is the ROI if I quit my W-2. He has enough income now and the history that he's now lendable as an entrepreneur, which helps. So then I can quit my job and technically kind of roll into the similar role that I had in other jobs, which is also helpful. And let's grow the construction business, which then led into flipping. And now here we are, so I think it's fun to kind of watch the evolution of it, but we're not comfortable with staying with one thing and saying that's who we are, that's our identity. We would rather, like Tyler says, you'd rather have all of it, everything.
Oh, I'm selfish. If given an ultimatum,
I call it open-minded.
Thank you. Yeah, if given an ultimatum between two things, I'll always try and say, how do I get both?
Yeah.
And that's my mindset. That's my philosophy. It's in my genes. And I think that as this whole process went on, my mindset was always increasing and increasing. And it was by virtue of seeing what we were capable of, the benefits and the things that we had that other people didn't have. And I said, well, if we've got all of these things working in our favor, we have a construction business, I've got my GC license, we've got all that. How many investors are succeeding that don't have that? So we're already a step in the right direction. So it's been a series of accomplishments that have given us more confidence to be able to think bigger. So we're very much, and it's kind of the namesake of our business, Laurelless. Are you familiar with the term resting on your laurels?
Yes, absolutely. I try not to.
Me either. That's in my genes. I don't have laurels to rest on, and good enough is never good enough. And I literally apply that to every facet of my life, not just construction. But bringing Zosia on board now brought us more opportunity to create a business that works for us. It's a vehicle. It's a means to an end. Same with real estate investing. I'm not passionate about construction, nor am I passionate about any business that I'll ever own. I'm passionate about a philosophy, which is the Laurelless philosophy of doing it exceptionally well. But at the end of the day, it's all a vehicle and a means to an end to get us to the life that we want to live. So once I adopted that mindset, now we both share this fire in our gut to get to that destination and use the business, both businesses, the real estate business, any business that we acquire, that we create, that they're all going to work together in such a way that we're going to have so many things that are beneficial that competition just doesn't have, where we're also interested in building the teams to make each one of those streams of income more passive for us such that we can enjoy our life. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that the strength of your relationship, and then what from my research, you built that by building authentic connections with people who are in the business and ahead of you. And the way that you talk about it is the same way that I talk about it. I'm no bullshit, but there's a lot of it in the business. So it is very hard to wade through. How important we're making the connections to the right people, because I know getting the 7-plex, you wouldn't have done it without the connections that you made.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that was an absolutely pivotal thing for me to get out of my comfort zone and put myself as an unproven real estate investor in circles with people that are either already investing or investing more successfully, where you feel like an imposter and you don't belong there, or putting yourself in a position next to a bunch of other rookies to learn from one or two people. So that was during COVID. Yeah. The very first mastermind thing that I ever took part in was with Ashley Kerr and Steve Rosenberg. I was listening to them
both on the show. I love them both.
So more than anybody, I'll be honest with you, more than anybody, I credit the two of them with my, they changed my mindset more than anything. They didn't teach me what to do or the actual tactical things. They taught me the theory, but like mindset and confidence and the story that you tell yourself, that's what had to click first for me to give me the drive, motivation, and confidence to be able to actually do the damn things. Yeah. And then they were there every step of the way to support and help and be like, well, hell yeah, you can do that. And being able to help instead of question or be like, are you sure you want to do that? That was crazy pivotal. It unlocked a whole entire portion, or expanded or changed all my beliefs in such a powerful way. And then we continued to do that, putting ourselves in rooms of people that are doing bigger things than us. And we realized the power of not being the biggest fish in a small pond or not being isolated. So that's when we did the Maui Masterclass with Brandon Turner and Tarl Yarber, where I was like, this is way out of my comfort zone, and it's expensive. But I told myself, like, I want to buy us new friends. Yeah. So that's what I treated that like. I treated that like I was buying new friends. I was going to hang out with an exclusive group of very successful real estate investors. And then you have no other choice but to elevate your own standards and try harder, but also having the support of this friend group where it's not competitive. It's just like people that are supporting people. For me, that was crazy beneficial as an entrepreneur and someone with a big vision that I always felt like I had to water it down. But now you're surrounded by people that are trying to pull it out of you. And I mean, I don't know what your experience was.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing to say is that you have to be comfortable with getting uncomfortable. And I think that that's exactly what Tyler did. And I remember one of the biggest things he brought to us after the 90-day challenge, or maybe it was even during it, was the power of like I am statements and just being the positivity and who you are. So then that evolved into the Maui Mastermind. And I remember when he presented it to me, he's like, hey, so I'm going to spend this money on this thing and go to Maui for 5 days. And I said,
but it's for work, I swear.
And he goes, I don't know if I'm qualified or not. Here's the criteria. I'm still going to put in an application.
I was not qualified based on the criteria that they had posted.
And luckily for Tyler, he is very good with words. He is a very good networker and is authentic as all can be. And I think that they saw that. And I can honestly say that the thing that I like about getting into the rooms with other people, one, you should always be surrounded by people that are smarter than you. Yeah. Like it's just the easiest way to like, whether or not you're learning by osmosis or actually learning.
Well, it humbles you.
Yeah, totally humbles you. Like we are by no means as like driven, or some people I'm like, how are you how are you a functioning adult? Like, are you a parent? How do you do all this? Like, I still blows my mind, but then challenges me to want to do those things as well. But I also love, because when we actually hang out with these people now, there's time for business, but a lot of times it's actually just the same mindset, right? You get into this room and it isn't, how many doors do you have? What are you doing today? How much money did you make this year? I'm like, I cannot stand those kind of conversations. To me, it's, are you a good human? Are you enjoying your life? Are you building great memories with your family? And kind of what are you doing to get there? And that is what the conversations have changed to with this friend group and these mentors and these amazing people that Tyler was able to get us in the rooms with, that we have fostered that relationship with.
And you mentioned authenticity. And I think that's something that's a huge point of almost contention with me and networking, where there's people that network with ulterior motives and they're not authentic or genuine, and they only enter into conversation with their motive of, hey, if I get this out of you, this is a good networking experience, or if I don't get this out of you, it's not a good networking experience. And I, from the very get-go of all my networking efforts, even with Steve and Ashley, the reason that they're such close friends of mine is because I went out of my way to be a friend to them, not because I was the best person in the class in terms of my answers or whatever, but, you know, everyone always talks about a value exchange. And if you want mentors, bring them value. And they oftentimes think that that's got to be something that's going to make them money or a deal or, hey, I'll come work for you for free or whatever. But we're all humans and we all like human connection. So what I offered was human connection. I offered friendship, and they saw that and it was authentic. And that put me in a different category of the other people that were like, you know, they had ulterior motives, or, hey, I just want to get close to you so that I can get close to them. And what happened was
to take an Instagram picture. Yay.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it opened this door once I started doing that, and people were like, oh shit, this guy's like not faking. This is authentic. He's genuine. And it opened doors for me to meet so many people that, to be completely honest, I don't deserve to be standing next to them in these rooms, spending time with them at conferences, speaking next to them on stages, because like they are just meteorically successful in comparison. But the reason we get to say that we're friends with them is because we led into all of it with authenticity and a genuine nature of not what I can get out of them, but what I can bring to them, even if it's not business acumen or, hey, here's a strategy that I think you should manipulate. It's like, hey, let's talk about your life and be real. And people really, really like that. And I think it's very seldom that people that are on, you know, the top of these lists get that, because they're always a target.
Yeah.
So I think that made a huge difference in the network that we're lucky enough to be part of.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things about that. One, you're surrounding yourself with people who you already can kind of predetermine to be authentic. If you look where Brandon went, Better Life, Tarl, Limitless, you know, these are factors that are the way that you guys think. So you put yourself in there. But I think this conversation is really, really important for new investors, because I think where they struggle is they're trying to get something from someone. Hey, can you be my mentor? I'm like, I don't even know you. Why would I be your mentor? How about we just talk? Like, come to a meetup and relax. How did you get past the imposter syndrome? Is it just by being yourself, or was it really the collaboration and picking the right groups and excluding the people who you knew weren't in it for the right reason?
Wait, hold on a second. Does anybody ever get over imposter syndrome?
I hope not, because I think it helps us all succeed by having a little bit there, because then you have to strive to get past it.
100%. I think like a little bit, and I don't want to like, it's not the level of lack of self-confidence or anything. It is an imposter syndrome, I think, in a positive tone of saying, you should always feel like you are the lowest person in the totem pole, which you said. Like, you should always be the person that can learn from somebody else. You should never be the know-it-all, and you should always be willing to learn, open up, or then also coach and teach when it is appropriate and there is the right community to do that. And I think, I don't know, sorry.
I think that's perfect. And to your point, like getting past the imposter syndrome, we might not be at the same level business wise with a lot of these people. So if we're trying to play the comparison game, which social media teaches us to do and human nature teaches us to do, is you're always comparing yourself against others. A very valuable thing for me to do is to realize that these other individuals that are doing insane things, they're normal ass people like you and I. They're not exceptionally gifted in any way that anyone else isn't. They just took action and made something because they stuck to it. And I think the realization that all of the people that we see on stages or that write books, they're normal people. Some people are like
are crazy,
extra.
really good.
Some people are really truly extraordinary, and I'm never going to try. But like, I don't try and compare myself in terms of what I've achieved. It's not a rap sheet of, hey, what are your successes? Let me compare them to mine. And I think that's where, I mean, we can have a whole other conversation about there's certain communities where that is extremely prevalent. And I think the flipping community is that. And frankly, I don't like it. But the reason I'm comfortable talking to the people and making new friendships with people that are quote unquote out of my league is because I look at them just as people, not to diminish what they've done, but I can connect with anybody. Put me in a room with someone and I'll find a way to connect with them. That's my superpower.
But that's the key to real estate and business in general. And honestly, life, it's that people are trying so hard to find
Yes.
connections. And it's like, well, just be yourself. Maybe they're
Right.
not comfortable with themselves, but that's because they're putting themselves in the rooms where people make them feel that they have to be different. So you do have to whittle down, though, because when you're in these groups in the beginning, you're like, oh, they're serious. That one, total bullshit. It does become that. And even when you go to the big events, you're like, I don't know which kind of conversation this is. And then it's great when it's a good one. And then the second one is not so great, but it's part of the process.
Well, and I also think that a lot of times what we're actually comparing is in a good way of, are you a good parent? Are you a kind human? Are you, do you care about the people around you?
You care about the same things as us.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, again, business is business. Really, you could probably put any business in front of a lot of us that have succeeded in business, and we could make something run, right? We could go buy a snowboarding company or something. Like, we understand the operation. So that doesn't set us apart from anybody else, but what sets us apart is how we treat our friends and how we treat our neighbors and our spouses and our kid. And I would much rather have a conversation about at that level versus the level of what was your revenue?
Surface level.
Very surface, which is not deep, and it does not have that deep connection. And that's where friendships or mentorships are forged, is where you actually connect with somebody.
And those conversations don't convey any sense of who you are or how you are. And that's, quite frankly, we're at a stage in our life where it's not a popularity contest. We're not trying to see how many friends we can collect or how many people that have X dollars in revenue or whatever. And if that's the topic of conversation that you want to lead into, I think it's an indication for us where there's a time and a place. But like, if that's the only metric of, a measure of man, one to another, I'm not interested in trying to prove myself to anybody else in any other way than like, are we similar people in terms of what we care about, why we're doing this? It's not about money. Money's, again, a tool. It'll come. I'm confident of that. I'm confident that we will have more money than we will ever be able to spend, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to live a well-intentioned life with those that I love. And I do want a collection of people around me to live that life with, that believe in the same things. And I feel like we've been spending the last several years curating that group and being drawn towards more of those people and away from the other people that are money driven.
Yeah.
Where it's purely a metric of how much money can I make because that's going to make me happy. Whereas we're on different pages, and that's okay. I'm not for everyone, and everyone's not for me.
Yeah, I love that. I really love the word curate your life, because I was actually in between being a lawyer and when I was full-time doing all this stuff, I was a curator in the art world. And I've applied that to my house. So, because when you're flipping, you're a curator also, you're designing everything. But I think curating your life is really important. It's putting the pieces around you that will help you grow, like you said. And then, of course, you always want people above you. But then once you start to know a lot, it's nice to help some people who are coming to you with the same way that you came to those above you. And then you're like, I really want to help that person. When those people come to me, I know right away, I'm like, I will spend the time to help them, opposed to the other ones that we're talking about who are like shoving a business card in our face right away. And it's like, I don't need a hard money lender. Like, I'm good.
No. I'm good. I could use some of the bullshit with, though, like, to talk about anything else other than business.
Yeah. I think, though, that's where you find it. I mean, I remember multiple times people asking me how many doors I had for years. And I've been investing for 30 years. And I always said, I have no idea. Like, I could go and calculate, but it doesn't matter. It could be 2, it could be 20. How are you counting doors? How much do your doors cost? How much are they worth? How much percentage of the doors do you own? So I really think that your philosophy puts you in the groups that you're trying to find. And I think if new investors, or even investors who just aren't finding their path, can take this advice and put it into play, would you suggest go to meetups, be intentional and authentic? Things will happen. They will happen.
Yeah, my biggest things for new investors. So I teach the rookie boot camp for Bigger Pockets as well with Ashley Kerr. So like, crazy cool story of meeting Ashley Kerr, and that was my entry in the world. And now in 2021, and now I get to like be her co-host on the rookie boot camp. I get to speak on stage with her. I get to participate in so many cool things. So to any rookie, what I would say is like, be authentic, be genuine, and just wait for cool things to happen. Don't do it because you need oh, I'm just going to like put on this authentic hat and bullshit my way. Like that's just hang out with people that are doing the things and it will happen for you. But also to your point of being able to help other people, there's a metaphor or analogy. I don't know. Does it use like or as? Whatever
That's
the case.
a simile.
See, and neither.
Let's do all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I can do it all. But I've always had this mindset of, for a long time, I spent time asking people or waiting for people to throw a rope down to me and pull me up by giving me friendship, giving me knowledge, giving me support, giving me whatever. And it would be extremely selfish and greedy if I wasn't willing to do the same, to throw the rope down to people that are asking. So that's why I do the boot camp, is because I just love, not that I think I know everything, but I love sharing the things that I do know that can help people in the position that I was in. And I think that's something that we both really enjoy and would love to find more opportunity to do so, because that is what I credit where we got is people being willing to help pull us up.
It's just hard finding that right balance, right?
Yeah.
Because
Can't
again,
help everyone.
You can't help everybody, and it has to feel, you have to feel as though you are authentically making a connection with somebody. And then you also want to make sure that you're not just like brushing people off. But I do know somebody that was a mentor in my previous life. He always encouraged us. Anytime you're like, hey, there's somebody that you really want to meet, ask for 15 minutes. And if it actually works out after like having a conversation, hey, can we meet for 15 minutes or can we have a Zoom call for 15 minutes? Oftentimes, if there's good conversation, you're not going to cut it off after 15 minutes, right? But if it's bad conversation, you just come in and you're inauthentic and you just want and you're just taking, oh, I have a hard stop at, at this time.
That's me to a T.
Yeah, totally. But sometimes then all of a sudden we've been in that place where an hour and a half has passed. I'm like, holy, I feel bad that I have used up all your time in it, but it doesn't feel forced. And there's that balance of finding the not forced connections with people.
Pro tip is, if you're a rookie trying to get those 15-minute coffee meetings, don't just do that right out of the gate. Don't cold approach and be like, hey, can I get 15 minutes of your time? No. You have to earn the ability to get to the point of asking for their time, instead of just being like, hey, you're offering people help. I need help. Give me 15 minutes. I'm not going to tell you anything about me. Whereas like, do what you can to plant the seed of friendship, or at least like make yourself known so that you're someone who's sticking around long enough for the person you're asking for their time, for them to see that you actually mean to contribute and do meaningful things, instead of just being like, oh, I'm waiting for you to like give me some of your free time. Earn it. You have to plant the seed of friendship first.
I think to help them even more in that situation, the way that I always think of it is what you've been saying, you're really in search of time freedom. That's what everybody's really in search of. It's not the money. The money's the vehicle to get to more time to spend with your family and friends. But the people who are asking the wrong way are forgetting that our time, especially when you have kid or kids, becomes more valuable. So if I'm going to take 15 minutes out of my day, someone has to earn the 15 minutes, like you're saying, because I really don't want to burn 15 minutes on somebody who doesn't deserve it, because I could spend it with someone else who does, or I can call one of my kids and hang out with them. My kids are older, so that can happen. I don't have to call your kid too young. But I think it's important for people to know that there's really a why behind it. And I think you can see when people understand and they come to the table with something like that's a great pitch. It's a great question. If you have the right questions, you'll get a lot further. And I suppose that's really what you're doing. You're being an open ear for allowing people to talk about themselves in the beginning, but also asking questions, not just about real estate or doors, but like about how they did this with their family, because that's what you do when you're either about to have a kid or you have, like you guys, a 3-year-old now. It's like, how's this all going to work out?
Yeah, totally.
Well, and something that's always stuck with me, if you do get that time with the person who you're asking to coffee or whatever, excuse me, we're both sick because we have a 3-year-old.
There you go.
Nonstop. Yeah. But there's something that's always stuck in my mind, and that's be interested, not interesting. And if you get that time with someone who's got way more experience and knowledge than you, the worst thing you can do is talk the whole time. Ask meaningful questions where you can extrapolate answers that they might not be telling you, or ask for just ask them. Everyone loves to talk about themselves, but if you're asking for someone's time and you want to go talk about yourself, that's a waste of that person's time. They didn't ask you to come talk about yourself. So like, be meaningful and intentional and be interested, not interesting. And I think that's also true for networking. If you go to meetups or anything like that, ask questions. Don't always dominate the conversation with talking about what you want to do, what you're going to do, all of that stuff. Like, ask questions where you can, in the back of your brain, you can start putting together a game plan. You don't have to tell them everything in the world. So just be interested.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. Hey, it's Jonathan. This is just a brief interlude to talk to you about Deal Machine. Listen, I've used Deal Machine, and I was crushing it with my Concerned Citizen postcard on Deal Machine. You can look that video up on my YouTube and find out how I did it. It works. Deal Machine works. I've had David Lecco, the CEO, on the podcast. So if you want a free trial of Deal Machine, the elite Driving for Dollars app, and I'm telling you, it works if you use it correctly, you can go to my link at bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. Now, bit.ly is bit.ly/Zen Deal Machine. It's free and you'll be up and running in 2 minutes, and then you can figure out if you want to keep it. Let's get back to the show. I want to get like about 10 minutes on flipping in general, because I feel like there's I'm in the forums all the time and I see new people like, I'm brand new. I want to go out and flip a house right now. I'm like, have you looked at the rates and understand? Explain to everybody just a couple tips that you would give for people who they're going to do it. They're going to try to flip for the first time now. How can they do it without losing all their money? Because I'm worried for them if they're going into a first-time flip, just not really knowing much and thinking DIY. It's scary.
Well, you're the operational brain of our business. I'll let you field that one because I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I believe that it was 2 or so years ago, I asked Tyler, I was like, can we flip? And he goes, no.
I hated the idea.
We are not flipping.
Not because I was scared of it, because I hated the idea of owning a house and not keeping it. I was like, no, anything I ever own, I want to keep. But Denver and interest rates, turns out that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. So we had our fun run of buy and holds and everything. And so it just kind of evolved to flipping. I would say that I know somebody who lives overseas and has successfully flipped in Cincinnati, and she has never even seen the property, and power to her. And she is so good. And I see everything. And I think it can be done. If somebody has the funds to do it, hires a good construction person and understands operations, you can do it. If you are a DIYer, do not do that. I think that is where
unless you've got a lot of time.
Unless you have a lot of time.
Years.
And and even still, what people are wanting in the market, and especially with higher interest rates and higher price points, if they're going to move into a remodeled home, they don't want projects, right? They want to move into a fully remodeled home. That everything is complete. Yeah. And so that is really what Tyler and I, honestly, 75% of our budget is spent on things that nobody sees. And it's really
things
expensive.
That most flippers don't want to touch.
Yeah, they don't come up in inspection, and that's what happens when you leave a few things undone. Then everything could be wrong, and it throws everybody off. So what you're saying is really important for people to know. Do all the shit behind the scenes, because other people don't. And when you get to inspection, people are going to find out anyway, and then your deal's going to fall apart, and then you're left with a house that, it was under contract for 10 days, and then it fell out. Something's wrong with it, and it's your baby. It's supposed to be brand new. Cosmetic flipping is not flipping.
It is not. That is what we've been trying. We're that's wholetailing, right? At the point, if you're just going in and buying property and throwing some paint on the walls and a new vanity, that is not a full blown flip. And we know really phenomenal flippers, and we know some flippers that don't do a great job.
That might fly in some markets and some price points, but where we do it, we are determined to always do comprehensive remodels. And I use that word very intentionally because, to your point, if something comes up on a inspection and it's something that by all accounts should have been handled, it makes the buyer, it's as much a psychological game as it is,
Definitely.
a numbers game, where you want the buyer to have a clear conscience, knowing and feeling and thinking and believing that you did everything necessary. The first time they see a deficiency that's obvious, they're going to say, what else did they also skip? What else did they not do?
Yeah.
If you don't give them any reasons to ever ask that question because you did literally all the things that need attention and an inspector comes through and they're like, damn, this is not a flip. And that's what inspectors have told us on those flips, where they're like, this is someone that knows and cares. Because I'm not a flipper, I'm a general contractor. I do this for a living and I have for almost a decade prior to ever flipping. I think new flippers need to understand the value of a comprehensive remodel. And it costs more, but at the same time, you're buying peace of mind from your end user, and an end user that has peace of mind becomes an emotional buyer, and an emotional buyer is exactly what you want. You want them to fall in love with the idea that you gave them an amazing home where no corners were cut, and that's how you get multiple offers. That's how you get people falling over themselves trying to come through the door for the open house, and that's the brand that we're trying to build here in Denver of our flips. They're not flips. They're houses that are fully comprehensively remodeled by this brand that gives a shit 10 times more than most people. And I think that there's a lot of value in that. You might get some quick money if you do some low level flips and some cosmetic stuff, but ultimately, are you trying to do this 1 or 2 times or 20 or 30 times?
Yeah.
You might burn your brand.
Business first job. Yeah. Business first job. You decided in the beginning, like, I'm going to make a business. And then the business got going so well, you're like, Zosia, I need your help because we have to take this business and put it over here. And I think if you just look across the spectrum of contractors in general, they have a very bad name for a reason, because most are really bad business people.
Yes.
They don't show up on time. Their crews are different every day. You can't rely on them. Like that perception is correct. Just like most real estate agents suck. These things are all true. It doesn't mean that there's not great ones, but every person who's in that independent contractor and contractor situation who turn it into a business and arrive on time and create smart expectations and do the job, like you said, are going to win. And it's really important what you said about the emotional, like, big yes of the buyer. Mm-hmm. That person who overpays for a property, not overpays, but wins a bidding war, they're going to really come for you, because that emotional high goes to an emotional low really quickly when you didn't vent the dryer, or something else, because now they're like, well, what's the plumbing like?
Yeah.
They got permits, but I'm not really feeling it. So I think those are really important tips to give people. Like, that's why I just don't think like new flippers are really ready for what. Let me see if you agree with this. I just posted this today in the forum responding to someone. So I said, for anybody thinking that they're going to flip as a new timer who has no experience and no contacts, it will cost at least twice as much. It will take at least 2 times as much, 2 times as long. You'll work with 2 to 5 times more contractors than you think, and people will walk away with 2 times more money than you think during the job. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah. And
I'm terrified.
Totally, because I think that, we get super favorable rates because we've done this for so long. We get good deals. I will say the best deals that we've gotten are fully off market. Like, no wholesalers, we've sourced. Those are the best deals that there can be. So if you're willing to put in the footwork and you can find those deals and execute it, honestly, the money that's in those, you could take almost an entire year and probably still make more money than what you're finding from a wholesaler or through market or anything. So I think that there are a few small caveats if you are willing to put in the work, and really it all comes down to sourcing the best deal. And I think that everything else you can kind of make up for throughout the process if you have enough meat on the bones.
You can still fuck up. If you're a new flipper and you don't know anything about construction and you're going to go, no, don't be nice.
It's called a red card because you think you don't need permits for everything, because this is the shoddy contractor that you met at Home Depot because you read the book that says go to Home Depot at 6 told you, you don't need permits for moving plumbing. That's no big deal. And then you have a red card for 6 months. Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Right. No, I think you need to be brutally honest. And if there's people that are listening that you're thinking about flipping, if you have no expertise or experience in construction, managing contractors, budgets, organizing, scheduling things, the sequence of construction, it's not for you to go figure this out. I would recommend that you find someone who's got the experience, either the construction experience or the management of construction experience, because it all comes down to putting all those things together, understanding a budget, understanding the sequence, understanding how to organize it before it even gets going, instead of being reactive day in, day out, being like, shit, what happens tomorrow? Fuck, I got to find a plumber. Oh, the plumber can't work at the same time as the electrician. So like,
exactly.
there is so much that goes into
they
being
hate each other also. Like, you don't know that these two people, but don't you?
For sure.
Yeah, I feel like people can just, they get ahead of themselves because they get pumped up by bigger pockets, which is awesome, and they get ready. But then I just get nervous because they're trying to take steps, which like we're all telling them, like, you need to take action, but it's like, you don't know anything yet. So taking action sometimes is going to meetups, talking to people, knowing when to, that's not your thing. Don't you guys think, I mean, both of you with your experience now, that if you want to be a first-time flipper, I personally think the best thing to do would be to JV with someone else who's doing a flip. Even if you're just putting in $10,000 or $20,000, just be a small part of somebody else's flip so you can learn everything and have a tiny bit of skin in the game without losing. It's really hard to do by yourself. And someone is like, oh, I can just figure out electric on YouTube. It's like, I don't think towns like that.
No,
neither does the end client.
Well, and I think the other thing from our previous conversation about building great relationships, it took us a long time. It took us, I say us now, Tyler, a very long time to vet and build great relationships with our subcontractors that we use now for client projects and flips.
Well, I took the same exact mentality of my real estate investing, relationship-based activity, being authentic and genuine. It's not just for the people that I want sub. It's for literally everybody. Everyone in my life, I'm trying to build relationships, and my subs are no different. My suppliers are no different. We're universally trying to be authentic and genuine. And does that mean we'll get taken advantage of sometimes? Yeah, probably. But over the years, I've curated a roster of subcontractors that'll go to town for us. They will bend over backwards for us because we take care of them and we're good people. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, but for example, our HVAC took a little bit longer, took 2 or 3 days longer. And what that did is that it pushed our hardwood floors back because we needed those to acclimate.
Which pushed another trade back.
Like we flipped it around. And so we figured it all out. But I had to make the calls today of saying, hey, I had you on the schedule for Monday. Guess what, friend? We're going to have to push some things around. And you know what he said? No problem, fam. We're good. Yeah. I'll figure it out for you. But it was proactive enough. I felt bad because it was a week out. But even still, I think that our teams are willing to do that.
And they know each other.
They know each other now. They work together now. It's great. Like,
well, in the end, you're helping them because you can't do X before you do you. So it doesn't like... whoever's fault it is, it can't be helped now, but you can't start your job, until the electric's done. Like that's, and once you've done a few, they know you're not messing around with their time and you'll figure it out. And that does go to, I do think it's harder to build those subcontractor relationships just because that's a very transient business. So I'll get it from both of you because I think like to me, as you get experienced as a flipper and you're moving along in your business, I look at the subcontractors as a depth chart, like in sports. Like you want to look, we got plumber number 1, then I have the backup for when they're not available. Then we have like 3B who's like in a pinch on like my worst rental. I need to use them. And you keep having to move them around because some just disappear, sometimes with your money. I mean, it just happens.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that as anybody's getting into flipping or real estate or building a business, it's really important to set your systems and your foundation and to track everything that you're doing. And like you said, JVing on a deal and just writing notes the entire time you're doing it, being on calls, learning, being a fly on the wall, showing up to every site visit, stopping by as much as possible. We're now able to be to a point where we might not go to a flip for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We bought some flips when we're not even in town now because we're starting to really validate all of our systems. So that way we don't have to be there all the time. We still go do check-ins. We do virtual ones. We're on the phone a lot. We have a combined communication system. We have construction management systems where we're able to more so focus with the conversations with our clients, which are much more forward facing. And since we're technically the clients on the flips, we're able to test out new systems on the flip
that keep us out of it.
And then we're putting into now also client projects as well. So it's actually fun for us being able to kind of test and adjust and move and have multiple projects going on at the same time that aren't just flips. If we don't have a flip going, it doesn't mean that we're going out of business. And we continually have income coming in different forms, which I think is super imperative. If anybody's getting started in flipping, do not put your eggs all in one basket, because we've had deals that have made us six figures, and we have deals that make very little.
Losing us 5.
Yeah.
So, and it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not without risk.
Yeah. But I, the thing that I always say about flipping when you're at either like a 0 or a small negative, it's like, I got my down payment back and I learned a lot. So you can't go into the doom and gloom. Like sometimes you're just going to shit the bed. I mean, or the town will just make it difficult on you, or someone will run away with something. But as we wrap up, I want to end where we started, which is, why don't you tell people how, from each of your perspectives, you can keep the relationship strong while doing business together in real estate? Because real estate, things are always falling apart. But like when you decide, this could be even for people who are just in like a friend partnership or something, but how do you guys make sure that that's always good while you're also running a business together and being parents? Because I think that's what people worry about a lot. Like, oh, I don't know if I should do business with my spouse or like my best friend. How do you guys do it and make sure that it's not perfect, but
I would like to do this,
but safe?
Goes over here, thinking I don't want to answer this. It's funny because, I mean, it's a deep-rooted belief that I have. I've known Zosia for 20 years, and I've always known she was my person. I always knew that I was going to marry her. I always knew that I wanted to have kids with her. I always knew that she was the key that unlocks everything in my life that I want. So for me, it was a no fucking brainer, but everyone else around us, as I was getting into the real estate investing world, doing all that networking, it's funny because my leading question to almost all of them, when I was brand new, I was like, do you work with your spouse? Is your spouse involved? And most of them were like, fuck no. And I was like, that is not what I want to hear. I want some positivity to think that this is a good idea. So I actually spent a good fair amount of time asking very well-to-do and established real estate investors or business owners. I was like, what does your spouse do? Do they contribute in any way? And they're like, nope. And I was like, fuck, am I screwing that? Sorry, I cuss so much.
No, you're good. We are authentic.
I love it. Passionate and authenticity.
But I started questioning whether or not it was a good idea. And it actually came to a point where I realized how damaging it was for me to expect other people's experiences to dictate what was a good idea for my own. So for me,
comparison game.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. So for me, once I got Zosia, I never stopped trying to involve Zosia with what I was doing, whether it was the construction business back in my infancy before we were even doing the real estate investing, whether it was real estate investing. Like, I want to do life with Zosia. That's why I married her. And the ultimate thing, like I said, all of this is a vehicle. I've got a grand vision for what I want this vehicle to look like. Don't get me wrong. I want a dope vehicle. I want it to be cool and fast and shiny and all that. I want the best of all worlds. But at the same time, I want that vehicle to get me to the life that I have in mind. And that life that I have in mind is with my wife. And if I can paint a picture so vivid about what that life looks and feels like, that I could get her to believe in it as much or a fraction as much as me, and get her to also contribute to it, rather than me saying, hey, I got this life in mind and I'm going to go do this stuff that's going to get us there. She's not contributing to it. She doesn't believe in it. She doesn't have the same fire in her belly for it. Like, that to me is a recipe for disaster, where you're trying to build a life. And I hate to say it, I've seen a lot of very wealthy, very successful people that have done it on their own, and they never involve their spouse in even the question of the design of the life, where they're like, I've designed a life for us and I just hope you like it. Like, that doesn't work for me. Yeah. So the biggest thing for me was for us both to independently establish what is it that we want out of life. And that might be different for us, but also there's a shared vision. And I always do this with my hand, saying, like, in the future, out here, and I don't know when in the future, but this will always be out there, where that's what we're working towards, whether it's time freedom, whether it's a great life where we can provide a safe upbringing for our child, or just share time and memories with him, whatever that is. It's always changing, but we're always striving to get there together. And if we're both contributing to it, I think that's the most powerful thing that we could possibly do. Like, it leaves no box unchecked for me on the fulfillment spectrum of being able to work towards a goal in my life, in my future. Like, that's all I'm here for, is to live an amazing life with the people I love. She's the person I love most. close second to our
Close
kiddo.
second to a kid now. I lost that. I lost
him
the
a
first
little bit more.
place.
But like for me, it's a sappy, emotional like reasoning, and I'll run through brick walls to make this happen because of who I'm doing it next to. It would be really boring to do it alone, but also we get to turn that off and say, hey, let's get out of the vehicle and let's just enjoy the shit that we said we were doing this for, not losing track of why we're doing it. So it's actually been, in my opinion, I don't know what you're going to say, in my opinion, it's been something that's brought us closer. It's not been without conflict or challenge or struggle or whatever, but if we get too comfortable, it's not going to grow. Anything unchecked and unworked on is going to deteriorate. So it forces us to work on our marriage. It forces us to work on how we parent together rather than just being like, oh, this is how we do it, and we're on autopilot. I don't want that. Sorry, that was a long-winded response.
No, I know we're close on time, but
you're good.
I think what's interesting is that the reason, after reading Rocket Fuel or anything, Tyler is a visionary and I am an integrator. And I think one of the things about me is that I am a very structured person. I need facts and figures. I need comfort. I need stability. I need answers. I need to know what we're doing at 5 p.m. tonight, which we are totally different, which I actually think, they say opposites attract. And there are times where that opposite nature hurts. It is friction. And I think that that's a normal thing within any relationship. But the fact that we've known each other, liked each other, married each other, had a kid together, and now own multiple businesses together after 20 years is a testament. And there are days where I'm like, what are we doing? Right? He will never say that he says that. But I think that I think you should be more like, we should all be more authentic, that it isn't sunshine and rainbows every single day, but we are willing to say, okay, what is our end goal? Are we working towards it? Have we done the things that we told each other we would do? Yes or no? Are we being good parents? Do we have the time to spend with our child? Because we are wanting to leave a legacy to him of being great parents, more than business owners or more than what we leave or whatever. Like, I want him to go back in life and say, my parents were so attentive to me and we got to have fun together, even if it's just in the backyard, because we don't
care what they did or how much they made.
And so I think that is how he and I have made it successful, is saying that we are really working on the boundaries of work versus relationship versus parenting, which is a very fluffy gray lines right now that we are trying to create like some distinct lines to make sure that, hey, when are we on and when are we off? And how can we make sure that that's apparent to our child or our friends or our family. And it's definitely been a learning experience as we've gone. I think that we have really dove in headfirst over the past year and a half since I came on board full time. And there's been a little bit of a learning curve, but I do also believe that our belief in each other and our strengths and our weaknesses fully support where we're going.
And
we just
our
sometimes,
why.
and our why. And sometimes we just have to remember that. I think sometimes you get muddled. Like, I try and get too much in his lane, or he tries to get into too much into my lane. And we have our strengths and our weaknesses. And we should stay away from the weaknesses. We should stay towards our strengths. And it's lately we've been saying, can you present that in a different box, or can you rephrase that or something when I feel attacked, or like. It's different because if a CEO of another company, my other company, would have said the same thing to me as a COO, or I would not respond the same way.
Right.
So I have to think back and think, okay, how did I respond as an employee? How did I respond as somebody who had to be a change maker or make these decisions? And can I do that same way in business mode with Tyler? And not have this be more emotional because I'm his wife or a parent with him. I think that that's a changing of the mindset of realizing that there has to be a separation in roles and responsibilities in the right times to do things. And I think that that's what is super successful.
If I could just add one thing, I think like I have convinced myself when I had all this mindset change that life is a continual sequence of improvement. And if you're not trying to improve and you just get comfortable and you're an autopilot, that's the life I tried to get away from. So in all areas of life, I'm always looking to improve as a father, as a spouse, as a business owner, as a hot tub user, whatever it is. Like, I think there's always room for improvement. And again, going back to the philosophy of Laurelless, there's this quote that I'll wrap everything up with. And it's both a massive motivation in my life, but also a very toxic thing to live by. I saw it when I was 16 on my brother's mirror, and I read it, and it goes, good, better, best. don't rest until your good is better and your better is best. Where at face value, it should be received by everyone that, hey, there's always room for improvement. You can always do better. You're never at the top or at the pinnacle. But on the flip side of that, I realized the more I lived by this, it robs you of satisfaction. So I also want to be able to improve my ability to be satisfied in the moment. And for a visionary, sometimes it's really hard. But the fact that I get to do this with my wife and the fact that we do it for our child is enough to get my blinders off to realize that's why I'm doing it. So turn off that quote, good, better, best. Don't seek best right now because best is at home right now. It's happening right in front of you. And I think there's a whole other episode where we could talk about satisfaction or lack of satisfaction and the toxic pursuit of more. But that I think is, if I were doing this alone, I would just be on grind mode for forever. Right. Always be seeking more or better. But the fact that I get to do it with my wife and the fact that we do it for the same reason, our why is so strong. I couldn't think of a better way. I couldn't think of any other way to do it, period.
Yeah. And I think of it as what you were saying before, like if you're looking out further, best's always out there. Like I hope it keeps getting better.
Yes.
You know, I don't know what best is. I haven't found it yet. I like what I've done so far, but I like to be doing better, or else what does this part of my life look like if I've already achieved the best, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I don't need the best today. The future can hold the best, but I need to be satisfied with today.
Have the best day, meaning just today was the best I could make of it, which, you know, when you have kids, could be anything. Could give you another petri dish illness, because that's just what kids do.
Always.
Love those guys.
Yeah. But I would say, I would encourage anybody. I know that the residual answer for a lot of his friends were like, we don't work with our spouses. And we know plenty of people that don't do that. One person brings home the income, the other person
I don't think everyone should.
And I totally agree. And I think that, but if you are in the mindset that you even have like a little bit of an inkling to do it, take on small projects together or take on stuff that's outside of your household duties. And if it's doing something where you're a joint venture on a project and the spouse is only 20% involved, but they take on one small role to test the waters. Like we were doing that for 10 years. And I think that that's what led us to feeling really comfortable of going full in. And I think with anything that you're doing, whether or not it's real estate or a business or deciding to have children or anything, I think if you plant the seed and have the conversation around it, and you can't not succeed if you're very clear about your intentions and what you want out of it.
When I think I don't want to encourage people to work together. I don't think it's a good idea for most couples to be completely blatant and
don't
honest.
Force it.
And don't treat it like that's the gold standard of expectations is, I'm going to retire my spouse because I'm investing in real estate and then they're going to join me. What if they don't care about real estate? Don't force it.
Yeah. And what if you really don't, that work vibe just doesn't work?
Absolutely. And like, I do think that we have a unique dynamic, and it's a dynamic that we've been curating for 20 plus years that put us in this position where this does work. So I certainly don't want to encourage people to think that it's a requirement or an expectation to work with your spouse. But if you guys can get on the same page and understand that there is a lot that goes into it, give it a shot. But most people don't really actually like it, to be honest.
Who knew we would just fix a lot of people's relationships along the way?
I know, right?
I thought this was a therapy podcast.
Yeah, it was. I feel like I just need to lay down on the couch for a little while.
I'll send you my bill.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, I'm really excited we got you on the program, and I can tell we're going to stay in touch. So I'm really glad that we got to spend the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for the time, and thanks for kind of letting us not only dig into real estate. I think.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Really good conversation.
Yeah. Well, this was created as a mindful approach to real estate investing, and we're trying to get those stories out there so everybody's not so one note, or like we were saying before, hey, look at my flashy car that's leased anyway. So, I mean, I'm glad, and I hope this can help people figure out how to or how not to, or at least make a plan for the future like you guys did. You see it out there. Doesn't have to happen today. So thanks for coming on. I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks.
All right. That was Tyler and Zosia Madden of Laurelless. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Wait. You have reached the end of the show. This is the part where you're going to get ready to check out, but I've actually changed this part. For over 120 episodes, you heard the same thing. Well, now I've changed it. I've thought about doing intros to the next episode, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. These are my pitches at the end. I've got nothing to sell you at all, but I do want to remind you that it really would help us if you support the podcast in the right way. All that means is subscribing to the podcast so you get it on Monday and Thursday, writing us a 5-star review if you believe that we deserve a 5-star review, sharing it with your friends, and being a participant in the Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing community. Soon there's going to be a new website launched. Maybe when you're listening to this, it's already going to be out there. That's where we're going to have collaboration. You're going to be able to see a lot from the guest. It is coming soon, and I just want to tell you, from me to you, I don't know how I got here, over 100 episodes. I'm so appreciative of you listening to the podcast and especially sticking around to hear this part. We'll see you next episode.